Hello, everybody. I'm sure that you recognize this painting because if you've been in my classroom to any capacity, you've noticed a certain skateboard hanging on the wall with this exact same image on it, with one slight little change where there's a piece of pizza right here. Today, we are talking about art. Now, I've probably told you this in the past. My mom was an artist. My fiance was a graphic designer. And I actually really like art myself. That's why I make you guys do so many quick sketches. Today, we're actually going to be looking at the evolution of art over time, starting with a period called the classical period, then moving into the medieval period, and then finally talking about what we're doing in our unit currently known as the Renaissance period. So before we get into any of that, I wanted to just show you these two paintings. If we were in class face to face, we do a lot more discussion on this, but I want you to compare these two paintings, one from 1220 and one from 1498. These two paintings are showing the exact same thing. There's a really important guy right here. I'm sure a lot of you guys in your head right now are saying, oh, that's Jesus. Yeah, you see Jesus here and you see Jesus down here. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are looking at this and saying, oh my God, I have that hanging in my kitchen. Yeah, this is a very, very, very famous painting. It's called The Last Supper. It's by a guy named Leonardo da Vinci. Super famous. We'll talk about him a bit here. But I want you to notice the massive changes from 1220 to 1498. This painting up here is an example of a medieval painting. Notice it's very two-dimensional, sort of flat. They sort of kind of look like aliens. Meanwhile, down here, this has shading, it has dimension. This is what scholars would call 3D, three-dimensional with a background or a vanishing point. This is what I'm going to teach you guys about today. So we're going to be talking about three different styles of art, starting with this guy here, classical art, then moving to this here, a stained glass window. This is medieval art. And then finally moving to Renaissance art, which was absolutely a massive break away from medieval art tradition. So you're going to have these notes available to you. So I'm going to go into the slightest little detail. You can go back and find a lot of the answers to your questions by simply looking at this, but I'm going to give you just a couple basically tips on how to recognize classical, medieval, and Renaissance art. So starting with classical period, you have this guy right here. I want you to notice his face. It's very bland. This guy's about to chuck a discus, which is about 8 pounds, yet his face looks like there's no problem whatsoever. This is a perfect example of a classical period, which comes from two different places. Number one, Greece. Number two, Rome. Now, typical classical period art shows either people or leaders or gods and goddesses. Think of Percy Jackson. If you see something that looks like Percy Jackson, but it's relatively basic, it's very likely that you have a classical piece of art. Moving on to medieval art. Now, remember, when we were talking about the medieval period in my class, above everybody else, the most powerful group in all of medieval Europe was the church. So you would think that if the church has the most power, the art that was coming out of the medieval period would be all about the church. You are right. You know it is a dead giveaway that it's a medieval period piece of art under a couple conditions. Number one, does it look like it is all about religion? You have the Virgin Mary here. You have man baby Jesus here, and they're surrounded by angels and apostles on either side. Now, if it's either about the church or about feudalism, kings and queens, it's almost a dead giveaway that it's medieval period art. But notice, medieval artists weren't necessarily concerned about making things look super real. Look at the size of Mary compared to these angels. Even man baby Jesus here is like the same size of this angel. This is a baby the same size as this. It wasn't a big deal about making things look real during the medieval art period. Rather, this is symbolic. The most important people or figures in the art are often depicted as being the biggest. Another massive thing, you see these little circles around their heads? These are called halos. If you see these, that means that somebody is automatically destined for heaven. If you see a halo around somebody's head, that's probably very likely that that is a medieval period piece of art. The purpose of these pieces of art is to teach people who can't read all about the Bible, people like Mary, people like Jesus. Now, a couple really quick hints. If it looks like they have alien fingers or sort of alien toes, blah, 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 that's another dead giveaway. Or if it looks like their faces kind of look like turtles, That's another dead giveaway for a medieval period piece of art. Now, the Renaissance pieces of art, they are radically different. I'm about to show you the most famous Renaissance piece of art of all time, which is, you guessed it, the Mona Lisa. Now, the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. There's a couple massive things in the Mona Lisa that are a dead giveaway that it's Renaissance art. Here's the two big ones. If you see shading, that's your biggest giveaway that that's a Renaissance piece of art. That is a technique developed during the Renaissance period to show depth. If you have shading, that gives your figure a 3D or three-dimensional look. This was not developed until the Renaissance period, so that's a dead giveaway. If you ever see shading in a painting, that means it's a Renaissance piece of art. In addition to shading, there's background. Notice, you see Mona Lisa in the front, but in the background, it looks like there's some trees over here, possibly a lake, some mountains in the background. This vanishing point, or actually having a real looking background, is another staple of Renaissance art. The third really important one, if it's focusing on regular normal humans, like the Mona Lisa, who just so happened to be a rich lady who had Leonardo da Vinci paint her, that's another dead giveaway that it's Renaissance. This isn't to say that Renaissance paintings are all about humans and nothing about the church, because realistically, people during the Renaissance were still painting Jesus and Mary, but they were doing so using techniques where they would actually use shading and give it some dimension and depth. So today's lesson's really fun. You guys first are going to start out by answering 5 questions. Use this slideshow to help you. And then I'm giving you a chance to earn 5 extra credit points if you can correctly identify 5 different paintings to which period of art they belong. I will give you 5 extra credit points. Good luck, kiddos. You guys are going to do a great job, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.